How long have you guys been playing together?
I think that was for the band.
Okay. First, I think, yeah, we didn't say our names. So, yeah, the question was how long we've been together. So first of all, my name is James Morrell. This is Dakota Irby, the namesake of Dakota Black. And over here we have
Jonathan Laws.
Okay. And how long we've been together? So I think it's actually like October or November, something like that, we started playing together, just this past year. So we met at a music jam at my house, and we really connected and felt like a, as we say in our bio, like a true musical kinship, as well as just really feeling like vibing as human beings. So hasn't been that long, but we've definitely feeling each other. So thank you.
Did you guys? So before this jam, you knew of each other. You knew each other.
We kind of knew each other, but hadn't played music together. Yeah. Well, I played a little bit with Dakota at a previous music jam, but yeah, we just kind of got together and.
I didn't know John at all.
Yeah.
More questions? More awkward silence?
I have a question for Nick. The songs you wrote about your son, have you read the poems to the son? Or what you've been up to?
Sort of. Yeah. You know, like I work with my son a lot on. We do. I read a lot of poems to him, just different people, and we do a lot of jokes. There's a lot of my second interest. It's a private thing. It's stand-up comedy.
Whoa!
Yeah. No, I'm not a comic. I teach a lot of stand-up comedy, and especially like early career stuff.
Yeah.
And so I want my son to be a stand-up comic. And my favorite, Live and Spoken is my favorite Richard Pryor. Early Richard Pryor is my favorite, probably all-time just thing to watch. Yeah. I can't show him that yet. But we do a mix of those things, and so every now and then, you know, I was thinking about my first book, which has a lot of, it's just a hard book, there's a lot of stuff he probably can't see until later, but I was thinking I wanted to write something that he could see. So yeah, I've read some of these things to him, and he likes them well enough. He preferred to, I think, write his own stuff and pick out his own stuff, but he seems down with it. You know that when we went to the Des Moines Art Museum, he told me, he looked at this big, I'm sure, 6-figure painting on the wall, and he's like, "It looks like garbage." Garbage, I guess, can be art. When I read that poem and I included that part, he got pretty stoked. Just because I was like talking about him, and I use his name all over the book. But I want to say one thing: if you start writing about your kids, this is going to be a point where he may be like, "Dude, stop writing about me." And there's a poet, a famous poet, who I think is a pretty good poet, but she. The legend has it, she wrote about her family so much, she was kind of a new confessional poet, that the word on the street was, I don't know if it's true, that her family had an injunction put against her to stop writing about him. So, I don't know. But yeah, so far he seems to be okay.
I want to ask if your son writes poetry.
He does. Yeah, actually the one of the titles of the poem, one of the poems I read, the subtitle, part of the title was the lyrics. I read the lyrics of The Emergency, and that was actually a line that he came up with. One day I said to him, like, "Give me a poem, dude." And he said, "I read the lyrics of The Emergency." And I was like, "What the hell did you just say?" And I wrote it down, and I thought, all right, there we go. You know, that's as good as it gets. He doesn't write a whole lot yet. I mean, he's writing some, but I write down everything, and we talk about poems and shapes of poems and sound. He plays a lot of instruments, and I'm not a musician, but I give him a lot of music tools to try and make music, and I write all that stuff down. I've entered his poem into this local contest where they make like these broadsides, they put them up around town. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I want him to at least feel like he's participating in this thing, you know.
That's cool. I just want to say that you guys are also inspiring. You really are wonderful, and your voice and your reading, the way you express it, is just amazing. You should be some program on TV.
You don't need to be on TV. He's right here.
I know that.
You're right.
So I just want to write a check for my pilot, Desperate House Poets, and
But your voice and the way you read is just, it needs to be heard. It needs to be heard. I was born in Detroit, by the way. I only lived there for a few years till I was about 6 or something like that. But it's very sad to hear what's happening and all the things that you talked about the war and the grenades, and just once.
Yeah, but it's also very joyous to hear what's happening if you hear the whole story. You know?
Well, I've heard a few things that I hear is what's on TV. What can I say?
Exactly. That's what's like interesting
Can I
about.
say I'm really inspired by what's happening in Detroit?
I am too.
You're what?
I'm inspired by what's happening in Detroit, because Detroit is really a foreground for us to look at what we need to do as human beings.
Definitely.
When we rely on each other versus institutional.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
and then also it's kind of like Detroit. America's such a baby country that Detroit is basically an ancient city here.
Yeah.
And it's like, and what people are kind of slowly realizing, but Dan starts forgetting really quickly again, is that basically it was a microcosm of like the impending financial crisis that we're only kind of just seeing the tip of the iceberg on. Once we pass peak oil, like this is going to be a shit show. And this idea that you could just ignore like problem areas and they'll just go away. It's so I think it's an important place for that reason, but it's also just a beautiful place to be an artist. Like if you make things, Detroit's a cool place because it still has that kind of working class mentality. And it wasn't until I got outside of Detroit that I realized that there were these weird like creative upper class populations, that were kind of disconnected. To me, everybody was just like in the muck and mire of it, making things and trying to connect to people. I thought that's what everybody was doing because that's what they do in Detroit so steadily. So you go other places and I'm like an anomaly to them. And to me, it's like, yo, this is everybody I worked with. Like, this is why we do it. We all are passionate and we all are trying to affect the youth. We all are trying to affect real change. None of us are just playing. Then you go to New York and like, you're in Brooklyn and there's people they're playing, and I'm like, oh, people play at art? Like, this is serious business to me. So I feel really blessed to be from a city that like has that kind of working class. I mean, both my parents were factory workers, and I feel blessed to kind of be from a place that has that to it, that texture to it. And like I said, the single story is dangerous. It is a place like with a lot of problems, but it's like it's so much beauty and so much important things. And most things in the world, like there are very few things in existence that can't be fixed by what's right about them. Like you're looking at a poem that's like not working. Usually, what's working in that poem like can fix the rest of it. And I think Detroit is a great example of that, and it's a microcosm of this country. So if we don't take care of our seats of power, we don't take care of our ancient cities, then what will we have? So that's just me being on my soapbox about Detroit for like a split second.
Can I follow up on that? Keep you on the soapbox. Just say a little more about your work with youth, or even just your work at all. What's a day of creative life in Detroit? What happens?
Lately, I do a lot of logistical stuff. like when I quit I realized that this summer it'll be 10 years since I quit since I hung my little 9 to 5 up and became like a working artist. Woo! And one of the things I always joke about is that I didn't realize when I said, when I was younger, I was like, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm living on the edge, it's like edgy and deep. But really, it's actually kind of a sound decision. It was a really sound decision because in 2008, when the financial collapse happened, I had friends that I remember this cat Jelani that I knew. I remember him saying to me, "Man, I wish I could do what you do, man. But I need that security." And, he's working in finance stuff. He lost his job. He was struggling trying to find a job in a field that he didn't even like. He was trying to figure out a way to get back to working 60 hours a week at something he hated. And I had my best year because I invested in myself, and I'm not going to ever have layoffs. I'm not going to ever downsize. I just have to do what I do. And people are. A lot of people discourage their kids going to the arts, and it makes sense. They're afraid. They're worried about the kids. They want the kids to be safe. They want them to sustain. And it's really hard to make a living as an artist. But the way I looked at it was like it would be really, really difficult for me to spend 40 hours a week doing something I didn't care about. And this life is so short. You only get one go around at it. The notion of spending that much time so you can feel safe and stable, I wouldn't have felt stable. And then and with the way our system works right now, it's not stable unless you are in that it's such a buzz phrase, and I was like, Tumblr social justice to say 1%, but literally, if you're not in that 1%, then everything's precarious. Most Americans are living check to check and are just one health disaster away from poverty. And so the notion that like you're going to be safe if you just get a job and make somebody else money for 40 hours a week, and a lot of it's like, that was true for our parents. Our parents, like my parents worked in a factory. It was true that you could come out of high school and get a job, and if you showed up every day, you can make $20 an hour and raise your children. It's not true anymore, you know? It's like these jobs do not sustain us emotionally, and now they don't even sustain us financially. So what are we doing, you know?
Getting back to what it's really all about.
Real talk.
That's right. In the great scheme of things, safe means nothing. I like what you just said, like.
Which didn't answer this question at all. Because the joke at hand though was like, you know, I was like, when I quit my job to be like a working artist, I didn't realize I was saying I also was quitting my job to be like an accountant and a booking agent, and a tour manager, and a web designer. And I'm an autodidact, so I kind of teach myself the skills I need. So a lot of stuff I do is like, some of it's like this web design, I'm managing a website, I'm handling sales. I run a small chapbook press now called Organic Weapon Arts. Oh, I forgot to mention, I actually have some arts chapbooks here too, and I run that with my partner Tarfia. That takes up like a lot of the time and energy. And then there's a lot of touring, and then like I do like class visits a lot. I used to do I used to do multiple weekly residencies in the schools where I'd be there like on a regular basis. When I moved back to Detroit in the fall, I was gone for 2 years doing this thing called Styler Fellowship at Bucknell University. And then when I came back, like it was like no way to work into like a weekly thing. So I started doing curriculum development from Inside Out Literary Arts Project, which is the organization that I was working with inside the schools. And then I do like one-off class visits a lot of time. And I just go basically wherever like people have me and try to like share poems and also kind of talk about this bigger picture. I look at it as a multi-tiered thing. It's like you have the craft of the work. And then you have the way that craft leads to emotion, and then you have the way that emotion leads to the bigger picture of like actually trying to affect change in the world. And so my day-to-day life is just basically trying to find all of that.
Do we even want to attempt another question? Anyone else out there?
One quick one. I just want to bear witness to your speaking out against peace. I mean, for peace.
Who needs peace?
Because like you were saying, like, you know, my parents are factory workers too, but all that changed after Vietnam when the brothers came home. And I recall as a teenager going to whole cities where all the black boys were gone, all the poor white boys were gone, and to be another kid to see people gone, how that feels. I mean, it hurts so bad. I mean, you can't imagine. I was fortunate I was able to travel around like that, but the hurt never left. So hearing your young voice, I mean, I'm 60 years old, and you're a young man, and still this fire cannot be killed of what we have to do. And I know more military people are going into the schools and finding ways to recruit. Now it's Hispanic boys are the target to make sure they don't miss anybody.
Right.
So these voices just have to be done. I corresponded with 5 young men in Vietnam for 3 years, non-stop, in some of the most horrible stories you can imagine. And you know, I'm against war, but some people have to do it. So we have to support the ones that still go. So your voice as a teacher is so important. And just give you your...
Well, the idea of peace, I've been thinking a lot about peace lately, and I've actually been thinking about what's more active than peace. I was reading something, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like, and it was something you wouldn't expect to see this thing. I feel like it was a comic, but written by this cat, Brian K. Vaughan. And it was like, and there was like, in the comic, inside the comic, there was this author that these two were trying to find. They're like traveling the galaxy, they were trying to find this author because he wrote this book that was an allegory against this long-standing war. And they kept saying, like, he was talking about the opposite, kept talking about he was working on this thing about the opposite of war, And we're like, yeah, peace, peace, peace. And it's like, why does everybody think peace is the opposite of war? And I was like, and I've been thinking about it outside of that context, like, the opposite of war is not peace. Like, peace is like equilibrium. Peace should be the norm. The opposite of war has to be proactive. The opposite of war has to be an active engagement. And I've been thinking a lot about how empathy relates to that and how art connects to empathy. Because empathy comes from empatheos, which means passion. And so to think of empathy as a passion thing, it's not a passive thing that you just have. Empathy is something you do. Because you can't actually feel what somebody else feels. the best you can do is reach towards it. And I think what true empathy is the ache of that reach towards understanding, which means it's a constant thing. It's something you have to keep doing. And this is what art demands of us. Dean Young said the greatest accomplishment of the human mind is the imagination. And the greatest accomplishment of the imagination is empathy. Like the ability to kind of like, to make that attempt, that work towards reaching someone. And so all our art, when we write a short story about a guy that doesn't exist and give it to someone on the other side of the country, the thing that's implicit in that is that there is something intrinsic that connects us. There's a connectivity amongst us, and that's what art always demands. And atrocity demands separation. You can't commit genocide, you can't bomb a village, you can't burn down a hospital, you cannot take people's land, you cannot enslave a race without convincing large groups of otherwise well-meaning people that they are not us. They're over there. Detroit is not West Bloomfield, which is like next to Detroit. They're over there. And that separation is what's necessary to be able to commit these atrocities. And art argues for that connectivity. This is why they jail poets around the world. This is why Wang Zhang was locked up a dozen times before he got political asylum here in America. The reason they don't lock poets up in America is because they don't have to, because we've already marginalized art enough. We've already erased poetry from our curriculum. We've already taken music out of the schools. We've already done away with art classes, so you don't need to jail artists here. Like we have an artist like they have to lock I up. They have to put I on house arrest in China because they understand the power of it. And the forces that work against us understand that power in a way that we often don't. Poets are always wringing their hands about, oh, no one cares about poetry. And it's like, it's this thing where like we're not acknowledging. And the ACLU article I mentioned, the first thing they said was they mentioned Percy Shelley saying the poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. And the people that get how important language is, those are the people that are in seats of power. These are Karl Rove, the people that do stuff like create something called the Clear Skies Initiative that rolls back years and years of anti-pollution legislation. Or, you like invade a country and call it Operation Iraqi Freedom. Like they understand the value and power of language, and we're the only ones sitting around talking about, oh, no one likes poetry, I know I write poems, it doesn't matter. I'm like, fuck that, it does matter. And this is why I take this so seriously. This is why I I put everything I got into it, because the people that stand against us already know how important it is. Like they sent 3 FBI agents to my house to question me on the day of President Obama's inauguration. They were there to tell me, new boss, same as the old boss. Like we know who you are, and they basically were there to tell me that they could run through my stuff anytime they want. I wasn't doing anything but working, teaching kids in Detroit to think for themselves. It's dangerous. They know it's dangerous. We're the only ones still pretending like it's not. Telling our kids that like art doesn't matter, you gotta focus on science and math. Like why can't you focus on science and math too? Like Einstein played the violin. He played it for a reason. There's a reason kids who work in music and art outscore the other students. But they keep stripping our art out of the schools and they're saying, well, the score's not going up. I don't know what to do now. We took away music and everything like about that promotes cognitive thought and it's beyond memorization. And like, also I just think like the idea of thinking for yourself is something that we learn from art. We learn to think for ourselves. We learn to think about how other people think. We learn from each other that way. And that's like, and that's the opposite of war. Like cognitive, active thought.
Oh man, you for real? All right, there's another question. I'm not gonna pass up Nick Ramsey. Last question of the night, Nick Ramsey.
You know I gotta do this, right?
I don't know.
So we got Milwaukee represented.
Woo!
We got Iowa represented, right? Woo! We got Detroit represented, right?
Yeah.
So being outsiders in a city like Racine, I just want to see what your guys' viewpoint with your brief experience of Racine is of Racine. What do you guys think of Racine? Each of you guys.
I love Racine. It's great. Everybody that I've met in Milwaukee that's from Racine are good people.
Where are you from?
I grew up in South Carolina, and I want to give a shout out to my mama who's here from South Carolina. I live in Milwaukee. I came to Milwaukee by way of Philadelphia, and I've also lived in San Francisco.
And you like Racine? Oh, that's good.
But like, so I travel to a lot of cities, and my experience with the city is always people-based. I'm not like one of those guys like, oh, they had this great statue, you know? I'm always like, if the people there were good, then I had a good experience in the city. And so far, this has been some of the most amazing people. Just feeling y'all energy. Like, I can feel y'all from right here when I was reading the poem. So like, I love the city, and I don't have to see any of it to know I love it because y'all are here and I love y'all.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. My only experience of Racine was parking a few feet away and coming into this room. And so my experience of Racine is you all, and I'm feeling great. So thank you. I love Racine. You are Racine. I love Racine.
Take video.
Pretty much the same thing. My experience was about 6-7 feet from the door. It's cool.
That's Chris Wall.
I want things to be like, Racine sucks!
I actually was going to say that. Racine reminds me a little bit of my hometown, which is this place called Topeka, Kansas. And has anyone been there?
Yes.
A few people, yeah. They said, you know, Racine, like Topeka, had a lot of industry that, you know, for a while it was thriving, and then a lot of industry left, and it just sort of strip mines a place, but then other things come in, hopefully, to fill in some of those voids. Topeka was like that. There was a mental health community there that left. There was Goodyear, and Goodyear kind of downsized to an extreme amount. So, I don't know, I feel at home here. You know, I grew up in the Midwest. I used to come to Racine. I had some friends that lived here a while back. One of the things I like, though, about this place is the lake. You know, I live in a totally landlocked place. I haven't seen water in so long. I used to live in Chicago and in Brooklyn, and I could see water all the time. And Chicago especially, I just lived really close to the lake. So I went down and just sat by the lake for a while today and just looked at it. I mean, you know, I'm sure you don't even think about it probably. You live here, you don't think about it. Maybe you do, maybe I don't. All right, excuse me. I just feel like making assumptions on all your behalf because I have no empathy. No, but you know, it's one of those things that I was the first thing I wanted to do when I got here was go check it out. And it's so weirdly, I was in Madison, and it's like their lake is totally frozen. They were telling me it's like 3 feet down. Here it's not, really. It's nice.
It was yesterday.
Okay. Anyway, so among many things, I also love Nick Dembski.
Oh,
yeah, we should give him a round of applause.
The Dalai Lama says, if you want to make others happy, practice compassion. If you yourself want to be happy, practice compassion. The Dalai Lama also says, if you are not on the Bonk listserv, talk to me before you leave tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. Thanks to Vino on Main. Feel free to support him.